Can I just address quickly Dennis's point? I feel like a point of frustration is that that makes it seem like the zoning revisions committee process has been illegitimate and that other people aren't allowed to have alternative ideas. The fact of the matter is that this didn't come from nowhere. We have had this proposal on the table for almost 6 months now. We've done very thorough analysis of it. We've had 2 public meetings where we collected input from the larger community, and we've been out there talking to a lot of people. And I think it marginalizes a proposal unnecessarily to call it Danny and Dylan's proposal. You know, I'm not attached to this. I'm just trying to put another set of ideas out there so that we're allowed to have discussion about more than one idea. And so far, I feel that discussion has been shut down in this process.
And I think understanding the history is useful, but that part of what we're wrestling with in this section of this meeting is the merits, not the history. And so is there, we've heard a bit about the case for why this proposal, whether exactly this or conceptually an entryway zone out to the north and a specific node not fully defined right around the Barrett Street intersection. Understand a little about that history. What are some of the concerns or contrary views in response to that? I just want to have both perspectives represented. Again, on the merits, not on the history.
Could you ask her to just please tell us what the differences are between the alternative proposal and the chamber proposal about setbacks and building heights uses?
Well, in the entranceway business district, which we haven't fully agreed on the details of, there would be, in my conception of it, an 8-foot maximum setback, or you could build to the street. So that's that northern entranceway district. And if you had the setback with no parking in front, you have parking on the side or the back, and you need to design for both cars to be able to come in and park in the side and the back, but also for pedestrians with buildings set close to the street, and for pedestrians to be able to have a very short walk to access those buildings, and also cyclists with bicycle parking in addition to your car parking. So really designing to make options for all modes of transportation possible, particularly in that entranceway business zone at the north and the south.
So a maximum 8-foot setback is your proposal for the sake of discussion, okay?
But I don't think, one thing that the Office of Planning and Development pointed out is that if you're not allowing parking in the front anyway, you might not really need that maximum setback, because there's not a lot of incentive if you don't have parking in the front to go further back. So.
Are there questions for clarification? No.
Just from my point of view, without talking about the details, I view it as insufficient traffic to support either, and it would basically kill King Street more effectively than the 2002.
Insufficient traffic to support either one.
There's not pedestrian or bicycle traffic to support any bodybuilding there if they had to meet these criteria as opposed to highway business criteria.
So clarification question, the proposal right now in answer to Wayne's phrasing is to require rather than to allow?
No, the proposal for the smart growth district and also potentially for the entranceway business district in terms of uses, which is what Wayne was speaking to, is that we would allow residential on the first floor. So if somebody wanted to come in and build a 4-story apartment building, and that was the kind of development that developer does, is apartment buildings, then they would be allowed to do it. They would not be required to have a retail use or an office use on the first floor with residential above, which is what the current zoning allows essentially for general business and etc.
And that's the issue. We have less than 19% of our tax base is commercial. We have no more commercial land. The sentiment of the community is not to allow any more commercial land. All commercial activity in this town has been disappearing for the last 30 years, and it's going to be completely gone by the processes we're currently discussing.
So that seems to be part of the argument against.
Well, it's easier to build housing and it will make money in Northampton. But if you do it, you wipe out business.
So what about?
And then we have to use the cars to drive to Hadley, which is the only place that allows business.
What about Wayne's idea? Would you be particularly open to the node if there
But
wasn't a requirement?
no, the node is problematic. It breaks up the zone. You destroy the integrity of the district. Look, if you want to allow, forget residential, But if you want to allow people, because they're smaller parcels, to do smaller things, I don't have a problem with that. But that's allowed in the Chamber's proposal. You can build closer to the street if you want.
I'd like to put forward a proposal that Jim Nash made in our ZRC. Jim's the one member of the ZRC who's not here. He said that this notion of a multi-use node might in fact make some sense, but we should think about it as having applicability in a number of places around the city, and let's defer that to some kind of multi-use node overlay that could be. I mean, he was frankly saying that we got so many other things to work out. Let's set that one aside, and I think it's a good suggestion.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I like to see businesses in the neighborhood, so you don't have to drive to Kingston.
To the extent that it could happen here, it would be many, many, many years in the future. So I just don't see the point of debating that one now when we've got many other things to work out just in the existing 3 zones. So I would suggest this overlay district be deferred.
Can I ask how this is different multi-use than, I mean, King Street, and both entrance business and highway business, it is already a multi-use zone.
Residential is
It
already
allows
allowed.
second floor residential, it allows all kinds of commercial, a little bit of industrial. I don't understand the difference in terms of multi-use in the smart growth zone to the zoning, to the highway
Well,
business.
in the smart growth district in particular, you would allow residential on the first floor, potentially behind King Street, that could be a compromise. You know, speaking to this idea of will commercial be completely wiped out if we allow residential on King Street, one of the principles of the sustainability plan is if we get more people living near commercial, they will actually support it. On the one hand, we're saying King Street has been experiencing disinvestment, so we don't have enough businesses coming into the commercial we already do have zoned. And then on the flip side, we say if we allow residential, it'll wipe out all the business property in the whole city. Those two things don't seem to make sense together to me. If we've overzoned commercial, and that's part of the reason why we've got disinvestment, particularly on our corridors, we have too much commercial to be supported by the residential, then allowing for more residential, allowing, not requiring, seems to make sense.
Can I ask,
The way you framed it to me.
go ahead,
Well,
Suzanne?
I think there's over-zoning commercial. What I heard you say was that our zoning is allowing too much commercial than the market is demanding. I think my perspective is our zoning is restricting the attributes that commercial interests will seek to locate somewhere, rather than, so is my distinction clear in terms of what you've said and what I think the chamber has said?
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
I
that
think that
part
it's
of the
pretty-
genesis of this idea of a smart growth district was when Danny and I went and looked at EPA guidelines for transforming commercial strips, and they had population guidelines for different kinds of, basically different amounts of commercial development. And Northampton, King Street did not basically meet the thresholds for the amount of commercial that it's currently zoned for. So based on that, you know, the logic is allow more residential so that you have greater population to support the long-term transformation that we envision for King Street, which is that it become a walkable, mixed-use environment in keeping with the sustainability plan's goals.
Well, it seems like that guideline is talking about a commercial area that is supported, I'll just use a figure, 90% by the resident population in some proximity, 2 miles, whatever the proximity.
There were different categories.
Whereas King Street is
Yeah, there were categories for regional. Local,
and how did you
local.
characterize King Street?
It was characterized as parts of it as regional and parts of it as local.
What parts is local? That's where I'm getting at. It's like King Street is for the hill towns where they do shopping, and it's
Right.
for a lot of people where they shop for cars. So that, using those equations kind of it doesn't
Sure.
seem to work.
And the highway business district is that regional. This is us saying, okay, for the short term, that people are going to drive from very far distances to access regional businesses and how we find our highway business zone. But we shouldn't ignore the people who do live around King Street, and the fact that there are many smaller properties that have been experiencing disinvestment because those are not businesses of regional reach, and those are more appropriate to be serving the community that lives around it.
Okay,
Small
so
businesses that do serve the local neighborhood located in the highway business that's proposed, it doesn't preclude that, I don't understand.
I don't make the.
And what's your data for that? What's the evidence that there is that sort of local residential support that would make this vision
Or less.
Well,
viable?
in part, we've identified these high-density residential areas that were sort of missing in the earlier conversation. And we've also identified, there was a map that OPD produced that showed how many people live within half a mile of King Street, so we have that data. And then there's the idea that we actually allow for more residential and bring more people in to support that kind of environment. More
So-
people support more commercial.